sometimes you find something in a video game that makes you think, well, I guess I won't be needing this anymore. Oh crap. I guess I gotta order a new plate. Oh god! Oh, this is why today we're diving into 8 video games with unexpectedly dark secrets. And only 7 days left to secure yourself an Oddheader Plush. Only available until October 30th, and after that, never again. So if you want to be one of the only people to own one of these guys, this is the last chance. Snag one on Makeshift with the link down below. Tower Unite. Thanks to RanchChan for submitting this discovery on the Oddheader Discord. Tower Unite is a game that can't seem to escape this channel, constantly being covered for increasingly strange mysteries. Despite being a title just about playing games like putt-putt with your friends, discoveries have included a mystery door out of bounds, as well as a hidden bulletin board out of bounds that supposedly led to an incredibly creepy hallway before it was removed from the game. But besides all of that, RanchChan found something in the files that seems to take reign as now the strangest thing found in the game. Throughout the environment, the player can find a variety of plushies such as foxes, penguins, and teddy bears. But lurking in the folder that stores the plushies in the game's data, a particular asset can be found that couldn't be further from being a cute and adorable plushie. Oh god. As under the name Plushman Spider can be found this enormous and unnerving creature that clearly doesn't seem to belong anywhere near this game. Now that is a huge asset. Nobody on my Discord could figure out what the discovery's purpose was, but it was definitely agreed it made no sense this creep was found in the plushies folder, as not only is it bigger than any of the other plush toys, but it's also pretty clearly the last thing that anybody would ever want to snuggle with. Did RanchChan uncover some sort of twisted joke, or is this ugly freak still somehow waiting to be found? I truly pray it isn't. Cause I mean, look at this thing. Hotshots Golf 4. Thanks to Meryn for submitting this through my website oddheader.com, as they found a video uploaded by Captain Speedruns this year that presents an intriguing discovery that exists on course 5 hole 6. As at the start of the golf tee, if the player were to take the camera and zoom all the way to the other side of the course, a strange figure can be seen near the hole looming over in the distance. And of course, the moment we try to get a closer look, it instantly dissipates into thin air. What the f was that? Playing the game, I wasn't able to find anything like this anywhere else in the game. And it's quite puzzling what we're even looking at, as it appears to be a metallic open-mouth robot thing in a maiden dress, with some seriously messed up hands. And sometimes it even flashes before it disappears. Intriguingly, the figure appears to have an effect on it known as billboarding, which means no matter which way the camera is facing it, the figure is always looking it straight down. And after the figure disappears, it doesn't reappear again unless you restart the map. What's with all the golf games and extremely unsettling discoveries? Outer Wilds. Thanks to SwagGuy47 for submitting this mystery on my Discord server. Outer Wilds was a sleeper hit of 2019, sticking players into a 22-minute time loop as they repeatedly explore an enormous universe until the sun explodes and destroys everything in sight. But aside from that premise, the player is going planet to planet in a pretty quiet and ominous adventure, which is why it was particularly odd that players crawling through the data of the game were able to find references to a number of curious things that were never found in the game, such as an invisible planet, rooms that were labeled as haunted, and even a neck-snapping ghost. At one point referred in the data as Neck Snap Ghost Controller, with even a special event tied to its killing state called Ghost Kill Player. Obviously, this is completely unfitting to anything in this game, with no signs of a neck-snapping ghost that anyone knows of. And while nobody's head's been ripped off while exploring through the game, it is very open-ended, meaning there may just be an invisible planet lurking in the game that anyone's yet to find. So if you want to be the one that uncovers the truth behind the Neck Snap Ghost Controller, just make sure you're protecting your neck at all times. Psychonaunts. Psychonaunts is a bright and colorful platformer from Tim Schafer, where you play as Raz, who enrolls in a camp that trains psychic children to become government spies known as Psychonauts. At one point in the adventure, Raz finds himself inside the head of the disco-obsessed camp counselor Mila, where players notice they could veer off course and find a hidden room containing a memory of Mila working in an orphanage, grimly revealing she left one day and a fire ignited and killed all the children inside. In the same room is a chest, where inside can be found the ghosts of the same children screaming for help, which is an unbelievably dark hidden moment for a normally bright and lighthearted game.
Why did you let us die?
Even more unbelievably, cut dialogue was found in the files of the game that revealed this Easter egg was even darker than what we've already seen, as hackers uncovered deleted audio of Mila crying in terror as she was forced to stand by as the children met their horrible fate.
The children! Someone save the children! Oh God, no! The babies! I can hear them! They're screaming! Please stop crying! Please!
Well, I can understand why Mila locked this memory away, as after seeing that I kinda want to shove this deep down my own psyche myself. Shadow Tower. Shadow Tower is a first-person dungeon crawl for the original PlayStation developed by From Software, which is oftentimes referred to as a spiritual predecessor to Dark Souls. Redditor Donovan Kirk decided to play Shadow Tower this year with a PlayStation emulator using a widescreen hack. He was turning the corner near the beginning of the Forgotten Realm in the human world, when he saw something strange stick out the corner of his eye that appeared to be trapped in the wall, as only visible by forcing the game into widescreen mode. A corpse can be seen hanging in the wall that normally never appears in the game. I spent some time investigating the scene myself without the widescreen hack, and I found if I placed the camera just right I could actually see a good deal of the figure, but it still fell too far outside the render distance to truly be seen, whereas with the GTE widescreen hack, which increases the game's draw distance, the whole thing is right there. Wow. Donovan Kirk has pointed out that there's a huge number of secret areas in the game, but it appears nothing here has ever been documented. So while it's possible there is a secret room here that's just never been found, I did notice myself a similar scene that appears to have been cut shows up in one of the game's Japanese trailers. So I'm leaning towards they thought this was pushing things too far and censored it at the last minute, although poorly. Not that anyone ever noticed except, well, everybody who's now watching this video 21 years later. Half-Life Decay. Thanks to Lucius for submitting this discovery through Oddheader.com. Half-Life Decay is a co-op adventure released only on the PS2 version of the original Half-Life. Developed by Gearbox, Decay has you assume the role of Colette Green and Gina Cross at Black Mesa during the events of the original game, where a mishap at the facility opens up a rift to an alternate dimension. In the original Half-Life, at one point protagonist Gordon Freeman ends up knocked out by the military, only to end up waking up in a trash compactor. In a cut mission of Half-Life Decay, we were originally going to explore how Colette and Gina were the ones to rescue Gordon during the sequence, but it didn't make it into the game. Fortunately, hackers such as YouTuber Marfimus Blackamus were able to compile all the unfinished assets to recreate what the scene would have originally looked like, and rather surprisingly found if players were to have lost the mission, they'd be treated to this rather grim display of Gordon Freeman being assassinated on screen. Well, I think it was a good call they removed that, as I think showing the beloved hero being casually murdered and tossed to a pit like he was a bag of steaming garbage would have been a bit much for Half-Life fans to handle. Even for me, this one hurts. Kamaitachi No Yoru 2. Thanks to Capybara Man 1000 for submitting this to me through the Oddheader Reddit. This is kind of an unusual example game for me to cover on the channel, but this mystery was just too good to pass up. Kamaitachi No Yoru is a murder mystery visual novel series that's only had one US release on iOS, where players go to an island to solve clues to a series of cryptic murders. This mystery has apparently been discussed for years over in Japan, so I'm quite shocked that no discussion of it has ever really made it here overseas, besides one Spanish video from Argentina by NicloasLoquendro that Capybara Man sent me on Reddit. Anyway, after the player has seen all of the endings in the game, if the player restarts the game again and replays the adventure, at a random point out of nowhere the game appears to completely crash. Whether or not this is intentional has been argued among fans, though personally I feel these effects are fabricated. A strange text block appears with 4 nonsense options which translate as follows: curse, choose suffering, attention, why do you die? Then one of 4 different outcomes will play at random, some of which seem to have something to do with a disgruntled developer that worked on the game. For instance, in one result, the game will suddenly switch to a blue animated background where an ear-piercing audio and gibberish text scroll across the screen, talking about Christ, how to apply lotion, frog dissection, and repeatedly saying there is no help for being cursed over and over. The second tells an unusual and cryptic story about one of the writers who worked on the game, which seems to imply he may have snuck this in the game without the other staff knowing, all while an odd head slowly fades in and out on screen. The developer explains in the message that while working on the game they began to hear a voice and saw serious delusions in the office. only to later be diagnosed by a doctor that they had a neurological disorder. The developer explains he was haunted by the deaths of the characters from the game, and at one point seemingly implies that he was let go from the game staff, but adds that he still lives on in the game in the form of this message, closing with that there's still time for you if you haven't yet heard the voice. The third possibility is perhaps the most disturbing of all, as a quick succession of horrifying images flash on screen while an absolutely ear-bleeding screech plays in the background. Oh god, what the is happening? During this sequence, the most nonsensical text displays on screen yet, which starts talking about organs and suffering until it repeatedly says over and over, "This is such a game. This is such a game." Then it is. Soon after, it starts saying "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," until it repeatedly says game over and over until it reverts back to the normal game. And the last option displays an image of a mysterious figure on the beach for 1 second and then resumes back to the game. Without question, this is one of the most bizarre discoveries I've ever seen. And with the constant argument and debate about the mysteries still unresolved overseas for years, it's difficult to say if this is truly the work of a disturbed individual who was fired from the game, or if something else is going on here, and if this was really the work of a disgruntled employee who was let go during production. I truly hope they're in a better state now than they were when they did this. Kanye Quest 3030. Thanks to Gideon for submitting this still unsolved mystery in Kanye Quest 3030. Kanye Quest was a 2013 indie hit where players play as the Yeezus himself as they fall into a portal that takes them to the year 3030 where they face off against clones of other rappers in a battle to become the ultimate bass god of the future. A fantasy that could have easily been dreamed up by the rapper himself. The game was considered by critics and players alike as a fun novelty until it was quickly forgotten. Until a suspicious anonymous pastebin file that was uploaded a couple years later in 2015 revealed that the game held a much darker secret. According to the user, the trail began when they noticed a broken based info system in a random abandoned building in the game that seemed to hold a secret message at the bottom that said ascend and worship the base god. Later, you meet a base god task force cultist in the street who randomly asks, "What do you want to do?" The pastebin user reported that he randomly tried the word ascend and was teleported into an extremely ominous area where they were suddenly a butterfly. And downloading the game for myself, I can confirm that this surprisingly works. Inside lies a strange labyrinth of computer servers and an immediate message telling you not to reveal the information of this exercise publicly or otherwise you just go ahead and close the game, as it's apparently time to begin your ascension. In the room is many blocked passages by computers that require a password. Going south reveals a room that's a giant QR code that unfortunately leads to a dead link. What the link originally led to is still unknown. But it didn't end there because data miners found all of the passcodes to the terminals, which were lots of seemingly nonsense words like Jakatai, Patunsi, and Iron, which Googling appeared to be tied to a cult called Ascensionism that according to old posts was uploading cryptic YouTube videos with these words years ago, which unfortunately are now taken down and no one has seen since the pastebin files upload. Several references of Ascensionism can be found online since the late 2000s, with a Wikipedia user page that's existed since 2006 claiming that Ascensionism is a religion, well before Kanye Quest's release. But if it is really a cult, it's one that's done a fantastic job of keeping its mostly unknown presence online still a secret. Once completing the room and finding the last terminal, the game tells you you've now ascended. It proceeds to say you'll be contacted in 2 weeks and ask for your information. It's been thought by many in the years since that the game may have originally used this information to track the player in order to recruit them to the supposed cult of Ascensionism. To this date, nobody has ever been contacted. However, data miners have found the game is coded to do absolutely squat with the information once you put it into the game. A now deleted Twitter account was also found called Ascend Records, which was a label with only one artist on it named NicloasLoquendro, who's believed to have been connected to the game, and listening to his music is a highly unsettling experience.
The traveler, he travels through my mind. I thrashed and kicked and cried.
Okay then. And unfortunately, that's pretty much where the trail ends. The creators behind the game are largely enigmas online, much like Ascensionism itself, so it's still a question if this was done as a reference to the creators' actual beliefs, or if something else is going on here that we just will never fully understand. Kind of like how we'll never fully understand Kanye himself. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And again, one last chance to own your very own Oddheader plush. Only 7 days left to order one and then it's never available again. So if you want to be one of the few people to ever own one of these collectibles, pick one up on Makeship today. And if you know of any other discoveries that were unexpectedly dark for the game they were found in, submit through oddheader.com, join the Discord, or even send me a shout on Twitter or Reddit. Shout out to Anna Morris, Arizona T, Bitwif27, Dan Duval, Dead Plastic, Decider 12, Dear Mid Crowley, Eddie Talkspit, Flex, James Fadman, Jonathan A.L. Ornelis, The New I Fart in Elevators, Nichiban, Rage Spot, Rise Sparrow, Reed Della Rosa, Riley S, Select, Sneaking J, Tony Humor, Towerizer, Wade Murdoch, Jan Beneer, and Yu Kirby for their Patreon support. Stay tuned.